Hey, good afternoon from Faroe Field. Gabe DeArmond here. Power Mizzou live after what can only be described as thrilling. My microphone is now messed up. Hear me? I don't know. I'm going to bring Jarod Hamilton in. Jarod, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me because my microphone is messed up. Okay, cool. I don't know what microphone I'm on. I don't know how it sounds, but we're going to talk for a while. They played what they called a spring football game. It was not exactly a game. For the record, the black team won 10-9 because the gold team botched a 2-point conversion. My personal MVP for today is the referees because I don't really know how you spot the ball in a game where it's two-hand touch. I don't know how you decide where somebody is down. Do you have a different MVP than that?
Us for being here. I don't know. Stuff like this, it feels preseason football, Pro Bowl type level as far as like how some things are going. I mean, the players, they're playing hard as much as they can, but it just feels like the overall workings, there's a lot of handicaps in it. Like you said, the two-hand touch, there's no official live stats. We happen to be in the press box with someone who was nice enough to pass over stats as they were, calling the game, stuff like that. But there wasn't nothing we could say this person actually had this besides the couple of people they could tell us. So it's cool, I guess. But
right, and I mean the roster split up. So the starting receivers are on one team, Brady Cook's on the other team. The offensive line is kind of half of the starters are on both teams. So it's not a day where you come out with a whole bunch of takeaways and thoughts on, hey, what we saw. In fact, I talked to one person on the sidelines in the second half who said, well, the good news is we're going to come out of this and everybody's going to think we're terrible. So you can't really judge anything. We were both fairly impressed with the crowd. We were guessing, I don't know, 7,500 people maybe, which is, considering what they were watching, probably pretty good.
Yeah, it was actually a nice sized crowd for this game, and it was decent. Well, it was windy, but for the most part, it was decent weather. Got to go out to the tailgates before the game and stuff like that. So it seemed like a good day.
That's the other thing. I mean, so windy that I talked to one person who said one of Brett Brown's passes had a draw on it. I mean, trying to complete anything over 15 yards was probably tough on this day. You're trying to run on a day where there's no such thing as a broken tackle. As soon as you are touched, you get down. So we couldn't really judge anything about Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel. I mean, it's just I don't know what to say other than it's impossible to come away from this with any real thoughts on what the team's going to be.
Yeah, so sorry, Mizzou fans. You guys are going to have to wait till I give you the golden nuggets, when I'm at the elite camps and stuff like that. That's when we'll start to get a little bit more information on what's really going on. But, yeah, if he was coming to this game expecting to see, we're going to see this person or we're going to see how this position works out, the position that had the most, you can kind of tell was punter. The punter position, you could tell maybe a little bit then, and even then kind of balanced each other out when I did the averages. I think they're all within a yard or so of each other.
And the other thing is, even with the punters and the kick, they're not getting rushed. It's not like a live kick.
Exactly. And there's no real pressure. There's nothing. You're not losing nothing. A bad kick isn't going – it just impacts you, but it doesn't affect, the team or whatever. So,
yeah. I think you can tell a little bit, just getting a look at some guys physically, that stand out. I think we both felt like you look at Darius Smith and go, oh my God, that's an SEC defensive end. I thought in looking at some of the pictures, and we're going to have some, Sterling Webb, I thought jumped out as a guy that probably just – getting off the bus looks a little better than I thought he would. Jamarion Wayne made some plays at cornerback, so that's pretty impressive. So those were maybe guys that jumped out to me as hey, just glancing at them, not necessarily going off what they did on the field, but just taking a look and seeing a couple plays, kind of those guys stood out to me.
For me, Toriano Pride. He looks like a more of a safety if you look at him. He's kind of a toned up dude out there. He had the one interception off Brady Cook. I think it was like a jump ball with maybe
Just
Josh.
like an underthrown pass.
Yeah, in the corner end zone. So you got that. I did also notice Sterling Webb. What I noticed was Joshua Manning and Daniel Blood. I think they it just makes me think of in one of my few impressions, because it's not much to take, but one of my few impressions is we've talked about a lot about how deep the wide receiver room is. Your 6th and 7th receivers. I know it's a spring game. I'm not saying that, but they look clean. What they were doing out there, they look capable, is what I'm saying. And we've only seen this much of them, so you really can't tell. But again, a spring game like this, you can kind of see there's some things that went well, and there's some things where you're just So at least they were more of a oh, okay. I mean, that looks cool. That looks promising at the least. They could do some stuff.
Yeah, Josh Manning had a couple catches. One of them was they called it down at the 2-yard line, and then they changed their mind and said, no, that's a touchdown. I don't really know what that was based on, but good for Josh Manning. He got in the end zone. Mookie Cooper had a couple catches. Luther Burden, the clear instruction was go out there and maybe get some cardio in, see how you like running around on the turf. I don't think he was targeted all day long.
Nope. He wasn't targeted. I feel like his highlight of the day was a zig route. And that was as much as I saw from just the zig route, not a target, and just doing that. Oh, you can cut real well. Oh, okay, that's good enough for us.
Yeah, I didn't notice any terrible snaps, which was good. Caden Green is another guy that he's one of the guys you send off the bus first. So the other team sees him and goes, "Well, this team might be for real."
Yeah. How do I feel about the offense? The offense line was all right. Quarterbacks probably was holding the ball a little bit longer today, including times with Brady. I remember I seen a couple passes where it's just like Brady, but again, the wind plays a factor. I thought the defensive line actually for both sides played pretty well. I didn't think the run game really got going at any point, and I'm not talking about any QB runs, which I think is cheating in a 2-hand touch game. How do you spy a QB when you know you can't tackle him? So if Brady Cook gets to the second level and he sees Chuck Hicks, he can break his ankles and the play continues. Or if not, it just stops. It's cheating. But the actual run game, I thought the defensive lines on both sides did, pretty well of making sure nothing crazy happened.
Yeah, and look, the goal here is get out of spring football with no injuries. They're going to have 2 more practices next week. I don't think we get to see one of them. So for all intents and purposes, from our end, spring football is done. Christian Williams didn't play today. I don't know anybody else of consequence that was Isaac Thompson's been hurt all spring. We know about Sam Horn has the elbow brace on, but I don't think there's really anybody. There were no injuries today. And
Mekhi Miller, he didn't participate. I did see him down there, but I don't know.
Right. As far as we know, other than Sam Horn, nothing that's going to affect this team come August.
Summer. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is this game it was broadcast on SEC Network Plus. It's going to be replayed on SEC Network. So if you talk to coaches, they will tell you, we're not going to run anything that even another coach can look at the formation on SEC Network and go, hey, that's something we didn't see out of them. They're basically running probably 4 plays in the spring game.
How do you feel about the wide receiver pass Theo Weiss to Mookie Cooper? I feel like
I know it happened. I didn't actually see the play, so I don't know how it turned out.
So I think Brett Brown, because I caught it only closer, but I'm pretty sure Brett Brown catches it out of the shotgun, throws a lateral back to the flat to Weiss, and he throws it to Cooper. I wonder if that's one of those things where maybe they don't run that play again. Maybe they run something out of that formation
there so somebody sees it.
Yeah, maybe it's just throwing it out there or something like that, but absolutely nothing that you've not seen over the last 2 or 3 seasons. QB draws, plays to the flats. I will say one thing I did notice a lot more today than I feel like I remember last season is they're going to be spreading out their tight ends more. Just not on the line of scrimmage and stuff, seeing all of them pretty much line up, slot, outside receiver, things like that, and just give different looks. And there were some times they threw to Tyler Stevens 2 or 3 times. He caught all his passes, although in my mind, I call those Brett Norfleet. Brett Norfleet can only be on one team. So they threw it to Stevens. But these are all Brett Norfleet plays is what I was thinking.
There was another one. Brady Cook threw a lateral to Marquise Johnson, and Johnson threw back to Brady Cook. It was a pretty routine play. Like Brady was wide open. It was like a 6-yard gain. Marquise Johnson was far more excited than anybody else that completed a pass today. He was fired up about that throw.
Yeah. And that was an 8-yard gain. Gabe.
8-yard gain. Okay.
I
didn't mean to mess up his QB rating.
I don't know how I feel about once your quarterback basically becomes a wide receiver, the shots there people are trying to plan out to get on him are much different. So yeah, that's definitely a spring ball play for sure.
Yeah, if anybody would have hit Brady Cook today, that dude was
off this game.
There's like 3 guys that, like, Johnny Walker could probably have gotten away with it. Maybe Chuck Hicks, maybe Toriano Pride. That's about it. Everybody else would have been cut.
No. I think Darius Smith hits him and then he tells Drink, "You're gonna like it." You're gonna know I'm okay. I can do this. But yeah, I don't think we'll see that play probably again in the season. I wouldn't think so.
The most exciting thing that happened, in my opinion, during a timeout, they had 2 dudes, just random guys, doing some contest where they had to like do a 40-yard sprint and grab a football and then come back and hold for a field goal. And we were talking about, you couldn't pay me enough money to put my hand down there when Blake Craig's leg is swinging through and might break my finger.
Yeah.
I'd have been doing the Lucy to Charlie Brown stuff there, man.
Yeah. And funny enough, Nick Quadrini won that contest because he banked it in off the upright.
Right.
But then unfortunately banked it off for 41-yard attempt when they were actually playing.
I think that's one of the pretty clear instances where I don't blame Blake Craig for missing that field goal. I'm going to blame his holder on that one.
Fair.
I think that's fair, right?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
It was probably a bad hold.
Do you have anything where you're just like, I don't even want to say takeaways, but it's just anything interesting that you find, like, even
it was fun going around on the sidelines, talked to Chase Kaufman, talked to Lawrence Bowers, saw Jeremy Macklin. That was probably, saw Zach Abram was here, Greg Bracey. That was probably the most exciting part of the day, honestly. I mean, it felt like a day that they do this because they're obligated to do it, and they do it for people who are just such diehard football fans that they're like, I want to see anything having to do with football. Or they do it with people, with kids who are like, hey, it'll be cool that they can go run around on the hill and be in the stadium. And, maybe we're not going to spend $200 for them to do it in October, but we'll bring them, let them run around the stands on a nice day.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you said they're obligated to do it, because I was thinking, why do they do these things? Because I'm pretty sure, like, during the season, Drink says they have something called Monday Night Football. So usually all the backups, the second and third stringers who are not going to play. Yeah, basically they have their own versions of games. And I know those games are much harder than we saw today. So I was thinking, why do they do this? But yeah, obligations and all that stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a chance for fans to come down here and do whatever they want to do. The SEC network gets about 28 hours of programming out of it if they do 2 hours with every team in the spring. Yeah. And like, look, man, that thing's tough to fill when the season, only so much SEC softball and gymnastics and stuff you can watch. So, there were I mean, it's a chance to at least see guys that we haven't seen on the field out there a little bit. You saw the transfers, Marcus Carroll, Nate Noel, Toriano Pride, things like that. But I just, one thing I appreciate about covering Drinkwitz is he doesn't make this any more than it is, man. He's like, guys, we're not picking any starters. We're not winning any position battles here. We're just out here trying to get a little bit better every day, individual skill work and stuff like that.
I get it. I mean, yeah, those scout teams and up to the second string guys, you're getting them more reps and stuff like that. And they're probably getting more reps this way than if you did regular. But part of me wishes just have the first team run out there for a couple series. If you're going to have a full game, you can do a couple series and then filter in everybody in anyway, because what are we evaluating? What are we seeing out of nothing? We're seeing nothing.
That's the point. They don't want us to evaluate anything.
That's also a problem. That's also a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think my disappointment with spring football, I would like, and this is not a criticism of Missouri. This is the way it is all over the country. I would like if in spring football we got to talk to guys like Nate Noel, like some of the early enrollees, Javen Richardson on the offensive line. Like, I'd like to maybe get a chance to interview these guys and do some stories on them and learn their stories a little bit and let Missouri fans hear from them in a no pressure situation, as opposed to, talking to Theo Weiss 3 times and Joseph Charleston twice and Curtis Looper 3 times in 4 days. I would like to get it. It's a good, because once you get into the season, look, we've got to do the stories on the guys that are playing and the guys that are going to impact Saturday's game and all that. This is a perfect time for us to get a chance and for fans to get a chance to know some of those guys who maybe aren't going to play as big a role come the fall. And again, everybody in the country does it. So this is not a criticism of Eli Drinkwitz or Missouri. It's just, it used to be a little different where you could use the spring to talk to like some second and third string guys and some guys that redshirted last year and learn a little bit more about them and how they progress. Like a Curtis Piegler. I don't know. I know not one thing about Curtis Piegler other than he wears number 77. That's the extent of my knowledge about him. It would be a good time to maybe get guys like that a little bit of exposure to the fan base.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something they should change. I just don't know what it hurts, like, by having them out there. And anything, I feel like it makes it better, because at the least the fans can know these, they can know their stories and stuff like that. And so even if they don't play, you can just have a rooting interest in that person. Besides saying, oh, that person played for Missouri, you can say, you know something about him. I don't know.
And here's what I think it takes. I think it takes and look, we're not trying to turn this into a whine about anything about college football, but guys, there's nothing to be learned from today. We can't sit here and talk to you about, the scheme and the game on the field. So in the age of NIL, if I'm a player, I'm going to my coach, I'm going, hey, Coach Springball, let me do some interviews, man. Let me get my name out there. Let me show my personality. Maybe some people will see it, and I cut an NIL deal for next season. I'm surprised more players aren't interested in doing it, to be quite honest.
I don't know. It feels like every year there's a couple of guys who take initiative to be basically the podium guys. Last year, the main ones, you got Javon Foster, Cody Schrader, Darius, those are the guys. And I think those guys who know they have a chance to get drafted and stuff, like once they start hearing that, that's when they actually turn up a little bit more about it. But yeah, I think it's important, period. Because if you think you're going to the NFL or play whatever professional league, you have to be able to do this anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, also, do you know how many people who have, like, I guess they're on college teams, pro teams, and they don't really work out, but then they're TikTok people or whatever because they have a personality. And some of that stuff starts by being in press conferences and talking to the media and stuff like that. Like, we would have known Dominic Lovett was a funny kid if they didn't, make him talk and stuff like that. So even though we think he'll be a pro one day, probably, that could be another avenue for that person, just because talking in press conferences.
For sure. Man at Arms. And look, if we got about 100 people on here, if you guys have something you want to talk about or anything, feel free. We'll spend a few minutes here with you, but cool to see some of the young D-line getting into shape. Firestone and Montgomery been hitting the weights. I mean, look, all these guys look in shape to me, to be quite honest, right? Like, I'm a 47-year-old dude, like, not in the greatest shape of anybody in America. So, I think they all look good. Cole Carter says we look big. I mean, I think they do just off the bus probably look a little bit more like an SEC football team than they did 2 or 3 years ago. That's fair to say. And we were talking about some of those guys earlier.
Yeah. They look bigger. I mean, but I don't know. We still, again, if that's one of our biggest takeaways. They look bigger coming off the bus.
Right. I mean, they should, right? Hey, they've been at the training table. They've been in the weight room. Good for them. They're doing what they should be doing in the offseason. And here's the honest thing. So Pro Day is next Friday. Really, from there until SEC Media Days in July, other than recruiting, you don't want to hear anything about this football team. You don't want any news to come out. You don't, because any news that's going to come out between now and mid-July is either injuries, arrests, or transfers. That's really all that's going to happen between now and then.
Correct. I don't know if it's this weekend or next weekend or whatever, but St. Patrick's Day. Isn't that soon?
Tomorrow, man. That's tomorrow.
There you go. And last year there was one of those things he was talking about happened on St. Patrick's Day weekend. So,
what was that? I don't remember that.
It was Chad Bailey got arrested.
Oh, okay.
That was over St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, you don't want nothing after today.
So all you want between now and then is you want to make sure every Mizzou football player has the Uber or the Lyft app on their phone. Just get yourself a ride somewhere. Go enjoy your off season. You win 11-2. You earned it. Just go. Just don't drive anywhere and don't make any headlines. Don't give us any reason to write your name on Twitter for the next 3 months, and everything will be okay. So I'm gonna have a photo gallery up. We'll have some video interviews afterwards. Jarod's gonna have just some kind of quick. Hey, here's some quick thoughts from the game. I don't know, man. Anything we're missing? Anything you want to throw out there and talk about before we get a little bit of work done?
No. I was just telling someone earlier at the tailgate that still got a handful of newcomer profiles. Spring crept up on me so quick, so got a little handful of those left. I mean, that's about it. We'll get some other stuff coming for you guys, but it's not. We don't have as many questions to things as we did last year, like even about the portal or anything. So I don't know.
We know a lot about this team. There's not that many holes. We know kind of what they're looking at in the portal. When that opens in May. It's spring football over before the SEC basketball tournament is over. So look, man, I like it. I appreciate it. It keeps the crowd down a little bit, keeps the headlines down a little bit, but I don't think Drinkwitz cares about any of that stuff. I think everybody's healthy. Let's get into the offseason, and then we got about 5.5 months to debate, whether this team makes a playoff or not. Yeah.
So for now, we can go back to basketball and everybody talking about that in that offseason. And
yeah, let's not do that. That ain't any fun for anybody. So, all right, guys. Well, appreciate you hanging out. We weren't sure exactly what to expect today, so wanted to make sure to give you a live show because, look, I know that a lot of you guys are interested in what happened today. That's why you're diehard fans. You want to know what's going on with this program every day. It's just not an event that lends itself to any big overarching thoughts. I think next Friday, Pro Day, will probably be far more exciting than today was.
Absolutely. And considering how Cody Schrader and Ennis Rakestraw had their days cut short, there's actually at least a couple of storylines of, are those injuries lingering? How can they do when they're fully healthy? All that good stuff. And it's 7, 8, 9 guys doing it this time. Yeah, and most
of those guys were here today. Cody was signing autographs. Darius Robinson, Ennis Rakestraw, Tyron Hopper. Saw a lot of those guys hanging around. JC Carlisle was here. So they'll be here for Pro Day next week. We'll have full coverage of that and hopefully talk to some of those guys, maybe even line up a couple podcast interviews for you and stuff like that throughout the offseason. But appreciate you guys hanging out. Again, we'll have stuff coming up on the site here in the next hour or so. And we'll have off-season football coverage. We'll keep doing podcasts once a week. Drew will chime in. Basketball portal opens on Monday. So we will be here. That's what we do 365 days a year. But until then, we'll talk to you next time.